I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
This is Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
This is Anthony Rings from XDP.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
Diesel Power Podcast.
Diesel Power Podcast.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
The one and only Diesel Power Podcast.
Hello, Diesel fans, and welcome to the official Diesel Power Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by ATS Diesel Performance. If you're looking for built transmissions, turbo kits, dual fuelers, and tons more, head on over to atsdiesel.com. ATS specializes in Cummins, Duramax, and Power Stroke platforms and builds products right in the good old US of A. From mild to wild, they've got you covered. This week on the podcast, we've got an awesome giveaway you don't want to miss out on. Longhorn Fab Shop is here. They've given us a set of traction bars, and guess what? We're going to give them away to one lucky listener. And if you don't know who Longhorn Fab Shop is, you got to check them out. They're a full-service company that designs and builds custom fabricated parts and prototypes for your daily driver, pulling trucks, and tractors. Now, these traction bars that we're giving away are easily a $1,000 value. Someone's going to win a set for free. But wait, there's more. Not only are we giving them away, we're even going to cover the shipping to you, so you really have nothing to lose. So how do you enter? How do you win? You just need to do three things. Not two things, not one thing. You got to do all three. And we're going to be checking to make sure that you did. So don't be that guy. Please, don't be that guy who could have won, but you only did 2 out of the 3. So the first thing, you need to make sure you're following the Street Diesel Power Facebook page. Most of you are, but just make 100% sure. If you're not, go to Facebook, search Street Diesel Power, and you'll find us. Second thing you need to do, we're going to post this podcast on Facebook, and you need to like, share, and comment on it. Not any of the other podcasts or any of the other posts we have. Make sure you like, share, and comment the Longhorn Fab Shop podcast post. The third thing, this is really easy. Go to Facebook, go to Longhorn Fab Shop's page, and just make sure you've liked them and you're following their page. And that's it, guys. You don't have to buy anything to get entered, give out your email, phone number, any of that stuff. It's absolutely free. It's going to take maybe 30 seconds of your time, and you could win a really badass set of traction bars. Our guest today, and we're really excited to have him on, is Manfred from Longhorn Fab Shop. Let's just jump right in and learn more about getting the power to the ground. Manfred, we want to thank you for coming onto the Diesel Power Podcast and talking to us today about your products and how you guys got started and what you guys are offering Ford, Duramax, Cummins owners out there.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, the biggest thing that we offer right now for all those guys, for the Fords, the Dodge guys, and the Duramax guys is traction bars. That's our number one seller, the number one thing we get questions about, why people need them, what the purpose is, who needs them, what problems they solve, and all that good stuff.
How did you guys get started? When did it kind of, the idea happen that you wanted to create these products for these truck owners?
Sure. Yeah, we started about 6 years ago selling diesel parts, and the number one thing that was requested from us was traction bars. Guys were needing them for sled pulling, drag racing, higher and higher horsepower trucks. But what we started seeing was customers were asking for them that didn't have super high horsepower trucks. We're talking trucks that just had a tuner, maybe some bolt-on modifications, and they were having drivetrain failures that we would have normally seen in the older, like the Dodge and Power Stroke trucks that were running high horsepower. We started seeing these in the newer trucks under just normal bolt-on applications, and we saw anything from broken pinions, drivetrain issues that really would have only happened in trucks that were 800-900 horse. And what we found out was that these newer trucks, the consumers really drive for a soft ride. That's the number one selling point. It's horsepower, soft ride, and fuel economy is a big selling points of new trucks. So all these new trucks have what's called progressive spring rates on them. When the truck sits at a normal ride height, it doesn't have a lot of spring rate. The spring rate's really soft. It doesn't need to be really firm in the back. That's why you get in these new trucks and they ride really soft down the road versus if you were to get in an old GM truck or Dodge or Ford or any of those, it used to just beat you down the road. So these new trucks have that soft ride to them. The problem is when you throw any type of power at those, that axle in the back starts to wrap because those springs are so soft. So that axle wraps up, and then when it unwraps, the wheel actually can hop off the ground and you get that shudder. Wheel hop, axle wrap, it's all pretty much the same thing. It's really bad for guys that are, they've got airbags in the back and they're pulling heavy loads. So now you have the leaf spring in the actual softest state, which it was designed to be completely unloaded, nothing on the truck, and then you have it pulling its heaviest loads. And that spring rides in that soft rate, and then you get really bad axle wrap when you're towing and things like that. So that was our number one request, was traction bars, and then we saw all these failures. So kind of we made a few sets for some local guys here, and it really worked out well. And then we started getting more and more and more requests from clutch builders. And if you install a new clutch and you're kind of feeling that chatter, and it's really bad in reverse. We see it really bad in reverse for Dodge guys. They try to back a trailer and they get a really bad shudder. And usually they end up calling the clutch manufacturer and say, hey, my clutch is chattering. And then not too long after that, we get a phone call from that customer because the clutch manufacturer is recommending traction bars. And a big shout out over to Peter at South Bend. We get this a lot. Hey, Peter from South Bend told me to give you a call. And we get traction bars on those trucks, and it fixes that, what the consumer thinks is chatter 100% of the time. We have a 100% success rate with guys running aftermarket clutches that feel like it's chatter, and the clutch builder is recommending traction bars. So that's kind of how we got started with why traction bars, why people need them, what's going on in the new marketplace with them, and why it seems to be so prevalent. So this isn't just for dedicated sled pullers anymore, drag racers or anything like that. This is really for guys that run an automatic or a manual transmission, definitely those guys, and the automatic guys that are towing a lot, just ripping it on the street and stuff like that. This is a really good insurance for that truck. And if you can imagine, when you're wheel hopping and you're into that truck really hard and you feel that wheel hop start to happen, that axle loading and unloading, if you can feel that in the cab and how violent that loading and unloading is, you have to remember that those forces are going from the pavement and tire contact area, so that stress there, and all that stress is transferred into the axle shafts and then up through the pinion, into the drive shaft, through the transfer case, into the transmission, and it gets transferred all the way through those shafts, the planetaries, and then you finally feel that in your seat. So all that stuff that you're feeling right there, every single component from pretty much the crank back is feeling all that same chatter. And we see it a lot. Allison guys, that loading and unloading is absolutely killer to planetaries. We keep tons and tons of planetaries in stock billet planetaries in stock for the Allison, just for simple reasons like that. We've seen guys that before they would need, if with traction bars, we don't need a planetary till probably 800, 850 horse. And we see guys that are running 500, 600 horse, and they're stripping planetaries out from that loading and unloading of that gear train in there. So that's kind of why traction bars right there.
It's a really great thing to talk about, because I think it's one of the most overlooked parts of diesel performance, because it's, we always think about, the turbo and injectors and tuning and even the transmission. But once you hit a certain power level, depending, like you said, on the truck and the leaf springs and everything, and you go wide open throttle and you feel how violent it is of that, that wheel hop, it can destroy a case on a transmission. I mean, I've seen that a few times where it's just left in pieces, or other parts. And you don't realize you need them until you hear that sound.
Oh yeah, it's never a good sound. The smell of transmission fluid is I always say it smells just like money.
yeah, it does. I remember the first time it happened to me. Like this was a long time ago. I didn't even think about it, and did all this stuff, went wide open throttle, and I go, what was that feeling I just felt? And I couldn't use the power at all till I put, traction bars on. So it's something that like you said, guys that tow, or even if you're racing, anything like that, it can save so many other parts and so much other damage by preventing that.
Oh yeah, and it's relatively inexpensive compared to some of the other performance modifications. Such good cheap insurance. I mean, we've had guys that were just just ripping it down the street, and they'll get such a bad axle wrap that we've actually seen the ears break off the pinion before. And it turns a good day or weekend of fun with some friends into trying to unhook the rear drive shaft, and they're trying to limp it home running four-wheel drive with just the front wheels turning. So it's pretty good cheap insurance for, having a good fun weekend with friends or at the track or whatever. So
absolutely. What goes into building a set?
Yeah, so this is we get this one all the time of guys that really want to make their own set, and they're not really quite sure how to do it and things like that. And so a lot of times people attempt it, and then they give us a call, and we try to sell them some parts to kind of finish the kit. But obviously we always recommend coming to us. This has been a long time coming. We used to just have guys that came in, and they would say, hey, I want a set of traction bars. Can you make me a set of traction bars? And we started making them in the rundown barn here. It was nothing to be excited about. It was actually pretty terrible and embarrassing looking back at it. And guys would stop in there, like, hey, you made a set for my buddy. Can you make a set for me? And we'd make a set, and we were hand painting all of them for local people. And then word got out to other people that were, further and further and further away, and it got to the point where people wanted them shipped. And traction bars are very, very hard to ship. Trying to find boxes, packing materials, it was an absolute mess to try to ship these things. And keep the powder coat or the paint at the time from scratching. And obviously all the shipping companies these days, they don't just drive it from our shop to your house. Somewhere in between there, I think it gets drop kicked like 20 or 30 times and dragged down the road, thrown on the truck, off the truck. I mean, it's like, I can't even imagine. I would love to attach a GoPro to one sometime just to see. I mean, we've gotten pictures back where we're like, I don't even know how that happened. So we ran into that, and I had 10 sets to ship, and I ran those 10 sets about 6 years ago. And after I shipped the last one, I told myself, I'm never building another set of traction bars again. This is crazy. It's just such a pain. It takes so long to do it right. And then after you do it all right, to get it to a customer and it still looked the way you shipped it was just driving me crazy. And so I got those sets out, and within the next couple of days, I was 10 sets behind again for people that wanted them. And so I kind of sat down, and I was an engineer at an OEM company, for an automotive OEM company. And I kind of sat down with myself there and with my wife, and we really just talked about, I was doing this stuff on a daily basis, at my job. And it was time to put some of those practices that we used in OEM automotive into kind of producing it ourselves, using the same type of lean standards, the same type of 5S, keeping things clean, taking our manufacturing and production kind of models and implementing those here. So that's kind of how we got started on those. It was quite the adventure. So it was, to get from there to where we are now, it's kind of been a common theme on the podcast, of the amount of work it takes. So that was 6 years ago. We were working 20 hours a day. I was welding bars, and brackets till 3 a.m. I'd get a couple hours of sleep. Then I'd have to be at work by 6. So I was like slamming lunch, as fast as I could, so I could go out in the parking lot and roll the windows down like on a summer day, lean the seats back and get like a 45-minute nap. returning phone calls on the way home. It was just like everyone kind of suffered for that one. My friends, my wife, no vacations, no going out. Every waking minute I had, I was making traction bars. And it's kind of one of those, for the guys that are in manufacturing, they can kind of feel the pain. Once you get in that grind, you are so strapped for time that all your time goes into production and not enough time into making the production better. So there's all kinds of charts in the lean industry and manufacturing that shows kind of what the time you should put in for the time it saves you and things like that. But when you're strapped for time and you don't have any more time, you're kind of just stuck. And so that's kind of where we were. We didn't go out, no hobbies, we were just shipping, welding. And it kind of got to the point where I had to make a decision and trust that this was going to be a full-time thing and this is where we were going. And it kind of just ballooned out of control. And it kind of reminded me of there's a movie, Bruce Almighty, where he's like driving down the road and he's saying, show me a sign. And there's all these signs from God that says this road's closed, and no one sees them. Everyone else sees them but him. And that's kind of how I felt. Like everyone else in my life was like, listen, you are nuts for not doing this full time. I cannot believe that you still go work for somebody else. And it was always, I had a million reasons why I should keep doing what I was doing. And finally I just had to trust that that was the right sign for me. And that was these people in my life were kind of God's sign for me to tell me, hey, you need to do this. You're doing it right. People appreciate the product and there's obviously a need for it. So one day I walked in with my resignation letter, and it's one thing to resign from a job. It's another thing to resign from a career. And this was something that I had spent, years at UC for mechanical engineering. I was walking away from a Fortune 500 engineering position, plus vacation time. I worked with probably the best people in the industry, the top minds. Every single aspect of manufacturing I was working in, from the people they hired to box stuff, the people they hired to design packaging and ship testing and stuff. These were all people hired away from other Fortune 500 companies. So I was working with the best people in the industry. And I sat down and I was pretty much shaking when I sat down in front of my boss, because I knew I was walking away from a lifetime career. And he kind of looked at me, and I didn't have to say much. And he knew it was the right thing for me to do too. And I'll never forget what he told me. He's like, I wish you the best of luck. I hope I never have to hire you again, but if something changes and doesn't work out, you'll always have a position back here. And so that was kind of eye-opening for me that he had some confidence coming from the background that he did in the manufacturing that we were doing and stuff like that this was, the right decision for me and my family in the future and stuff like that. So I walked away from probably the greatest job anyone could ever have, and what I thought at the time, and I walked into this, which has obviously turned into the greatest job. So we fast forward and we ditched the rundown barn. We went to a fully air-conditioned facility. It's obviously for creature comfort. No one's going to complain about having air conditioning while they're working. But we spend a lot of money on packaging, from ship testing to package design, custom dies, things like that. So we make a huge investment in that packaging, and we have certain requirements of how that packaging gets stored. We have humidity requirements in here. We never let the temperature vary. It's 72 degrees all year round. We keep the humidity under control. And that's all very important for us, because packaging is you put all that work into it and everyone overlooks the package, and you could ship that product and it gets completely destroyed. So you have weeks and weeks of production and it gets destroyed in a 2-day trip from here to wherever, in the United States.
That's really important, because you mentioned it earlier, but, these things don't just go from your shop to a customer in another state, just directly. They're going on an airplane, going back and forth, and you see these traction bars on the truck. It fits into as much of the style as anything else, and to have, there have been damage in transit or something got scratched or something like that. It's really important. I really like, hearing how you guys protect the product after it's produced to make sure the customer gets it the way
Yeah.
it left the shop.
Thank you. Yeah, we've gone through, a few different designs, and every time we try to improve it, every time we make another run, we try to improve different things and take in past experiences and stuff like that. Packaging is one of those things. It's tough. A lot of people think, oh, you just insure it, and if something happens, then they just pay it out, and that works as a consumer, but as a manufacturer and a business account, it's a lot different. It gets a lot more complicated, and your responsibilities as a manufacturer change as far as what you're responsible for in your packaging and how it's taped and how it's stapled and things like that. It all sounds really crazy and simple, but all those choices have to be made, and there's specifications for that and testing we have to pass and all that good stuff. So that's kind of where we went there. And then I'll kind of geek out here for a little bit on, how we test our products and stuff like that. Just traction bars are kind of tricky. We got a lot of guys that try to build them. And they call us, get a price. They say, I'll build a set, and then they call us back and they say, hey, my set broke. Can I go ahead and buy a set? I'm not really sure why they keep breaking. We'll just buy a set, and I'll guarantee that you're not going to break them. And so what we do here is I've got the capability of running finite element analysis on each component and entire assemblies. So what that lets us do is it lets us see where the stresses are in the product under different loading conditions and different constraints, how much stress there is, and then what kind of failures are going to occur. We can see, stress failures. We can see where that product might go from a elastic deformation into a plastic deformation, which means when that product bends, it may or may not return to its original position. So anytime you load anything, it doesn't matter how small the load is, there is some finite amount of deformation in the product. It doesn't matter if you just push your hand on the edge of the table. It doesn't look like it's moving, but if you could measure it in a small enough matter, it is moving. The difference is it's what we call an elastic deformation, which when you let go of that, it returns exactly to where it was before. So obviously everyone tries to keep everything in elastic deformation. If you move into plastic deformation, things can work hardened. You can get fatigue failures as that piece slowly moves back and forth. It can change grain structure and all that good stuff. So what we do is we try to use that data, and then we alter the design to make the strongest individual components, but more importantly, the strongest assembly possible. So you can change the geometry of the brackets and things like that, and it takes a lot of the load off the bar itself, and you can put that load into the actual bracket. And so there's a sweet spot there, how much load you want into the bars and how much load you want into the brackets. And that's always really the two most common failures. People bend bars or they break brackets. And so finding that sweet spot and designing it in a way that both, as an assembly, stay in an elastic deformation state, and then you're not exceeding any type of stresses that are going to cause long-term fatigue failures. What we consider, the industry generally considers a lifetime is 1 million cycles, which would be 1 million cycles of loading and unloading a traction bar, which happens actually relatively quick. 1 million sounds like a lot, but every little bump is a cycle. So we try to stay really low in that stress strain curve so that we don't see any fatigue failures down the road. So that's kind of geeking out there on what we do and how we design it. It's not just, we don't just make these brackets and slap them on there. The measurements and how they fit and the angles and all that stuff are very critical to the information, the data we have in the testing. So we definitely do that. That's the best way to start. And then we send that product out, and then we had a tester by the name of Corey Price, and we're talking about a sled pulling guy that he might not have the highest horsepower truck, but this truck always performs. It performs well, and the guy could break an anvil with a rubber mallet. I mean, it's just one of those guys. Like if he can be broken, he'll break it. So he had our Gen 1 brackets and absolutely destroyed them. I mean, just mangled them. Like 2 pulls in, they were done. And so he gave us some info on that, sent us pictures back. And the best part about that was that the failure that happened there actually matched the model where we saw high stress. We just didn't understand how much stress there was and what order of magnitude it was, but we knew that that was a high stress area in the bracket. And so that was awesome because when if you just run the model and you don't actually test it until a failure, you don't really know where your order of magnitude is, and you don't really know if your model is accurately predicting the actual real life constraints. And anyone that's done FEA before, you know how tricky it is, and how to get that model to replicate exactly what's happening in the real world. So we made some model changes. We didn't go all out on the second generation that we sent them because we were trying to see if we could move that failure mode around a little bit and see. So we fixed that problem, and then we let there be another high stress area that we thought might be an issue if that first stress area caused a failure, just so we could see if that failure mode was following the model exactly how we were adding parts and how we were welding them in and stuff like that. So we made those Gen 2s and sent those to him, and it failed, and it matched the model, which was another awesome, an awesome thing. So it meant our model was great, our data was good, and they were failing just the way we were predicting them, which is always what you want. Failures are bad, but failing in a way you predict is the best case scenario. So we were able to upgrade those brackets, and we made a bunch of modifications, and that was when the Duramax professional grade bracket was born, actually. This bracket has never been bent or broken by anyone, and I will challenge anyone that buys a set to break them. Break them and send me a picture, and I'll happily send you another set, but I want to see how and what it takes, because I haven't had anyone yet that can break one, and we've been interested to know if it's even possible. So that's me geeking out there a little bit for people that kind of are in that industry. There's a lot of other manufacturers out there that kind of feel that same pain, trying to match models with real life and the struggle that it is to try to get all that stuff to work out. So it's not just colorful pictures. So we got all that, and once we had that done and we matched those models, that's kind of where you get that bad impression of engineers where something breaks and the engineer comes out, well, it looked good on the computer and said it wouldn't break, so you must have done something wrong. And so we kind of just prevent that completely. We do the computer testing, and then we do all the real life testing, and then you kind of come back full circle. You can't just do the computer test and then send it out and say, yep, it works, and then never come back full circle and check and make sure the results actually match your models and the failure mode. So
it's probably pretty hard to the power these trucks make now and where they've just gone the last few years. There's got to be a ton of stress, that goes on to these different components, and that real world testing by tons of different people probably gives you guys amazing feedback, on not just the current design and products you have, but like you said, no one's ever broke the Duramax bars or brackets, and it's really cool to hear all that goes into it, when you get a set.
Yeah, thanks. And we're excited to see where the new market is. I mean, the power today, just a few years ago, people were striving for 1,000 horsepower, and now people are touching the 2,000 mark just within a year or two. And it's crazy to see what's going to happen and what those horsepower changes are going to mean for us and how we design, what we need to design for. We might have, a super duper extra professional grade for, who knows, 3,000 horsepower trucks. We just don't know right now what's going to happen. But the nice thing is all the design and engineering here is done by me. So if a guy calls tomorrow and says, hey, I destroyed your bars and I destroyed your brackets and I'm running this much horsepower, what are you going to do? I can sit down and within a few hours have a new design and testing it, and we can have a new product shipped. So that's kind of fluid here. Design work is really fast, and we have all the capabilities to get that stuff done in the modification. So we're excited. The more the industry changes, the more products that we have, and we're excited to see what happens there.
There's a few different series of products or different grades that you have. So for the guys out there, what are the different setups that they can choose from
Sure.
For their trucks?
Yep, that's a number one question. So all of our sets, everything that regardless of what grade you get, everything, all the weld-in bungs are custom made. everything is, all the welds and everything are all 100% quality inspected. Every bracket's laser cut. If you buy a set that has a formed bracket, it's all done on a CNC former. Everything other than welded kits, which are kits where guys want to build their own kit. It doesn't include the tube or pipe that they're going to need, so it fits in a really small box. It's easy to ship, and they can kind of make custom lengths and stuff like that. Outside of those kits, everything goes through a 7-stage wash on a conveyor system. It's all powder coated, all grade 8 hardware. Everything gets all the threads of all the weld-in bungs for these pipes. We 100% mask every single end of every single bar before weld, so no welding spatter in the threads, no powder coat in the threads, stuff like that. So regardless of what grade you buy, you're getting all those features and all those things that we've learned through production, that things that we wanted to include in every set. So the biggest question we get is, you have 3 different rod ends. What do I need? And why is the price so much different? And the rod end is the largest driver of cost on the traction bar. So we have our standard grade set. This is an economy end. It gets the job done. It's forged. The ball is actually pressed into the race of that rod end, and then the rod end is swaged around. And for guys that don't know what swage is, it's kind of like they smear the metal. There's a machine that sometimes they'll add ultrasonics to it, or vibration of some sort, and they'll actually rotate around the metal, and they'll slowly, they'll kind of smear that metal down, and you can't really tell. It doesn't really look like a smear, but they're forming that metal cold. And so strength isn't an issue. Those bars will hold, that rod end will hold well over 1,000 horsepower. But they do require to be lubed, and you have to keep them preloaded so they don't develop noise. So if you don't preload traction bars, almost always traction bars are in compression. So what we like to do is we like to preload those so the bar is in compression at a resting state, so that it's not unloading, loading, unloading, loading, unloading every time that you step on the gas. And so if you don't preload bars, they will actually, they kind of just hammer themselves apart slowly. And that hammering starts undoing that swage, and then the bar gets looser and looser and looser. It won't actually cause a failure, but they'll get noisier and noisier. So for standard grade guys, this is perfect for a guy that's on a budget, or he's got a sled puller and he wants something that's 100% functional, but doesn't need it to be the absolute best. He just needs it to work, and he's on a budget. So that's kind of standard grade ends right there. That's what we started with. That's our bread and butter. We sell we sell a ton of those. Those are our number one sellers, a standard grade set. But we had a need for guys that wanted something that was a next step up. They didn't like that, just forged. They wanted something a little tighter. They wanted something that was more, that would last longer on the daily driver, a little less maintenance and stuff like that. And so that's how we had the Hot Street. That's kind of the next step up. That's still a forged rod end. After the forging, it gets machined, and then there's a Teflon lining that goes inside that race where the ball gets pressed in, and that helps for wear. And then once that ball's pressed in there, it gets swaged again, and it's a lot tighter swage. Great rod end for daily driver. It's stronger than the standard grade, but just going to that rod end, even though it kind of looks similar, that rod end is about a $79 cost increase for those bars. And so we kind of had those two, standard grade and then the Hot Street. And as the trucks were getting newer and newer and newer, and guys kind of were wanting a higher and higher and higher quality product, these guys, we're talking guys that were spending $6,000 on a set of wheels. They were ready to pony up for the absolute best. And these are for guys that they've got to have the best of everything on the truck. And that's how kind of professional grade rod ends were born. The best on the market. These are chrome moly balls and races on these. When that ball gets pressed into the race, it's really not a press fit like the other ones. It's actually clocked 90 degrees and then inserted through machine slots. And then it gets clocked back to operating position, and it gets inserted in a special machine where there's actually oil-impregnated nylon that gets injected between the ball and the race. So if you imagine what a hydraulic cylinder looks like on a skid loader or construction or ag equipment, it's got that outer seal on them on a cylinder that actually wipes the cylinder clean, and on the back side of it there's oil. So it wipes it and kind of re-oils that cylinder every time you stroke that cylinder on the piece of equipment. That's kind of how these balls and races work. That oil is actually impregnated into that nylon, and it lasts a lifetime. And every time that bar or rod end moves, it wipes the ball clean and then re-oils it. Just enough oil to keep it from wearing, but not enough oil where it starts collecting dust. And so these things are massive. They're maintenance free. They're 1.25" 12 thread. You ever go to a monster truck show or anything like that, and you look at those trucks? That's what they're running. They're running 1.25" 12 thread on those rod ends, and you can see the kind of abuse that the kind of those trucks take in the suspension. It would be really tough for what we consider light duty truck, regardless of horsepower, to physically break these. And those rod ends, we get two types of customers that hear the price of those. It adds about $227 in cost, which isn't a lot compared to what you're getting from a professional grade setup, from a standard grade setup. But we get two kind of guys that buy those. One, they get the price and they say, "Oh my gosh, that's really expensive." And those guys don't fully understand what they're getting. And then we get the guys that when we tell them what kind of rod end it is, they're familiar with the industry. They're familiar with what they're used in and the cost of them. And we get the feedback of, "Wow, I can't believe you guys sell the entire kit for what you are using that type of rod end." So that's the kind of, that's the rod ends, and that's our number one question is rod ends all the time. "Hey, I don't understand the rod ends. I don't understand the rod ends." So that's kind of an overview of standard grade, great product, on a budget. They work perfect. Just got to maintain them. Hot streets, next step up, a lot tighter unit. A guy doesn't want any noise when he's driving, stuff like that. Hot street, professional grade, best you can buy. They're quiet. They're self-lubricating, chromoly. It's like the end-all be-all.
Do the brackets follow kind of the same different stages as well that you guys have?
Yeah, so we have a standard grade bracket. I'll start with the Duramax bolt-on brackets. The Duramax brackets for the rear are standard grade setup. It's almost exactly the same as professional grade. The professional grade has gussets on the side. Those are really meant if you're street, drag racing, stuff like that. Standard grade's fine. You're not going to load that bar hard enough to bend those brackets. We definitely recommend professional grade brackets. They're gusseted on the sides for anyone that's sled pulling. At the end of the track, when that truck gets loaded down and you're really pushed up against your bump stops in the back, it really, really, really stresses those brackets in the back. And so that's why we definitely recommend the gusseted ones. For Dodge and Ford guys, we do have some bolt-on stuff in the works for the future. Right now, almost all of those guys buy our universal kits. You get front brackets with those that either bolt on or weld on depending on your frame configuration. And then for the rear brackets, you get weld on tabs that are already radius for the axle. A lot of guys, even some of the Duramax guys, they'll do universal tabs just because if they got a welder there, they just assemble the tabs to the back of the rod end, and they just hold the bar up to the axle, tack it in place on both sides, take everything apart, and weld it in like 10 minutes. And so that's a really big seller for a lot of shops and stuff like that, is the universal sets, just because it fits everything, and they're so fast to install.
Awesome. Yeah, that's it gives. I just love the choices, because as truck owners, everyone wants something a little bit different, and you guys got it nailed with the different grades and the different things you can get from them. And there's something for everybody, and that's a really cool option that truck owners have.
Thank you. Yeah, we try to make it, not everyone can afford $700 for a set of traction bars. Some people have to, that own the trucks, they have to make a choice. I'm either buying this or I'm buying that. And sometimes, they can get a standard grade set and then they can get something else too. So they're getting traction bars and they have enough money to buy something else. And we have other customers that money is no option, it seems like. They call and they want this, and this, and this, and tell me how much it's going to cost so I can pay you. And so, and obviously everyone loves that customer, but I'm not that guy either. When I buy stuff, I go through and I say, okay, do I really need the best of this? Or should I buy, kind of the mid-grade or the low-grade this, and then I really love this, I'll buy that too, So I do the same thing, and so that's kind of how we develop these. I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't have endless money.
There was something a few years back. I remember, and I wanted to ask you about this, because it totally captured my attention. I know a ton of other people, and that's the bolt-together tie rod sleeves that you guys have. And I wanted to ask you about if you could, chat with us a little bit and let us know, how they came to be, what you guys are doing with them. It's totally cool, and so I wanted to talk to you about it.
Awesome. Yeah, the bolt-together tie rod sleeve is a completely different way of looking at tie rod sleeves. So before you would you take your tie rods off the truck or off the knuckle, and then you'd unspin the outer tie rod and you'd spin on the tie rod sleeve, and then you put it all back together. And you would try to count turns, but then if you didn't have like a pair of vice grips up by the center link and the rod end spun up there and you didn't realize it while you were unthreading the outer tie rod, all your counts were off, and you put the whole truck back together, go down, take the road, and your steering wheel turned like 90 degrees. And so you have to have an alignment after that. Alignments around here run anywhere from $70 to $150, depending on what you want done and who's doing it and stuff like that. So that's kind of a cost that people don't generally associate with tie rod sleeves. So they'll spend, $50 or $75 on a set of tie rod sleeves, and they forget about the fact that there is an actual additional cost. So they might have, let's say, by the time you pay taxes and everything, you have, let's say $150, $200 in putting on tie rod sleeves. And plus the time it takes and dropping a truck off, having someone pick you up. I mean, all that stuff that comes with it. So what we wanted to do was we made bolt-together tie rod sleeves that would just clamp around as two pieces of steel or stainless, however you want to order them. And these things, you just bolt them on in your driveway. The amount of force it takes to blow these apart is over 40,000 pounds of force to blow these bolts out. So they're not going to bend. You're not going to blow them apart. That's a big question we have is, hey, will this hold? Will these come apart? And the answer is no. We've never had a set that ever came apart or bent or anything like that. The FEA and the material specs on it and the thread pull and depth and stuff like that all say it's about 40,000 pounds to blow a set apart, which you'll never see in a truck or generate that amount of force on a front end like that. So this is perfect for guys that come in, they just got tires and wheels, they just got an alignment, everything's looking great. They launch the truck on the pavement and their front end is just all over the place. And now they need something for the front end. They just got an alignment and they don't want to take everything back apart. So it installs in 5 minutes. All you need is an Allen wrench. It's been in all the major magazines. Diesel World did a full spread on it. And that's kind of where, after that, we were like, man, this is great. Awesome. We got this new product. No one else has this product. And, man, the magazine hit the shelf, and it wasn't a few months later. There's another company trying to copy it, and they were selling almost the identical thing. And we made a phone call to them and, try to talk to the owner and say, hey, let's come up with some solution here on, we had this out. It's in a magazine. You guys are making the exact same product. It's really rare that this would just happen by coincidence. But kind of let's work together. Maybe we can private label them for you, but we really appreciate it if you don't manufacture these. And the gatekeeper that I talked to pretty much wouldn't put me through and said, unless you can provide me a patent, we're not going to stop making these. And we get a lot of flack for people like, you should have just patented it. You should have just put a patent in, and that would have solved all your problems. Just sue them, just sue them, just sue them. And that's it's not really how it works. The patent world, for a lot of people, they misunderstand the patent world. Anyone that's been there knows how costly it is, and then unless you have corporate attorneys on staff, it rarely pays off for niche products. And the diesel industry, even though it's a very large industry, it's still largely niche compared to a mainstream product manufacturing that might be like consumer goods, like kitchenware and stuff like that, where those companies, even for like high-end kitchenware, those companies that they're selling to even a niche market in consumer products, and they'll sell 10 to 12,000 a day of that product. So when you put that in perspective, diesel industry is still largely niche, and even the largest of large companies in diesel industry. So getting a patent, even if you get the patent for it, you have to police your own patent. So it's not a criminal offense to copy someone's product, even if it's patent. It's civil, so you're responsible for policing it. You're responsible for getting an attorney and all that stuff. So we were kind of frustrated with that. But you know, the other thing about the diesel industry being so niche is that it is a small group of people, a small community, and everyone in the diesel industry sees everything. Manufacturers, consumers, with social media, everyone kind of gets the same information, and they get to make their own choice on who they support and what product they support and things like that. And so we've been really thankful for the community and the diesel industry that doesn't just support the knockoff version. They kind of saw why our product was still better, even though that one was a knockoff. They did change the material on it, and that was about it, really. They changed the material. And so the consumers see that. We sell a ton of those to wholesalers, to dealers, through our own website and stuff like that. And it's kind of crazy because you don't really, and this is a warning that I give to people too, on social media, when you're talking and when someone makes a remark and you're trying to make a rebuttal, is kind of really think about what you're saying, because in this day and age, everyone sees it. So everyone has kind of the same access to information. All the manufacturers, we kind of have a little bit more information about stories and things like that, just because we're at trade shows and, you know, we hear it from the source and what the real story is and stuff like that. But in reality, everyone's watching. And I didn't realize how many people were watching this whole scenario go down until, you know, we go to industry trade show after industry trade show, and I can't tell you how many other manufacturers have come up to me and shook my hand and said, thanks for taking a stand against that. That was wrong. And even though you don't have really a legal leg to stand on, it was important that you stood up for what was right and having good ethical manufacturing and things like that. So it was pretty crazy and pretty eye-opening to me about how many people are actually watching. They watch what you say, they watch how you conduct business, they watch how you take care of customers, and it's not only consumers, it's other manufacturers, and that's in large just as important, because you see these people at other shows and trade shows, and they talk as well. And when that many people have talked to me and come up and shook my hand, I know that's been I'm sure that's been through dinner conversation and drinking beers on the back porch with other friends and other manufacturers as well. So it's kind of nice to see that. But anyway, so sorry, I get kind of fired up about that one. Every time I even think about it, even though that's probably a year and a half or 2 years ago, my blood still boils over that one. But it's all good. It's all over with. We sell a ton of them. The industry has backed them. The consumers have backed them. And so we make them available in steel and stainless, and literally takes you 5 minutes to throw on. We recommend, even for dealers, shops, get a set, keep them in your truck when you go to shows, when you go to events, because you can just throw them on. If a guy makes a pass and he has a really bad front end issue on the Duramax, get him out, throw him on, and he can make another pass. It's not a big ordeal.
That's really cool. I'll have to check those out and have to get some sets on hand and
Definitely.
I mean, you can't beat 5 minutes.
No, nothing on a truck installs in 5 minutes. Maybe the resonator delete tap that Chad talked about over there at Deviant on the other podcast. That's another good upgrade. 5-minute install, do it.
You guys have some other stuff too that's really cool, like some EFI Live switch knobs and some other things.
Sure. Yeah. So we do 3D printing here in house. We have a whole array of colors that we print custom switch knobs. Right now, the only switch knob you get is black, and everything else in the diesel industry is customizable in different colors and this and that. But you only get a black EFI Live knob, and that's already a guy that's obviously customizing his truck. So we offer all kinds of colors there. That's a big seller for us. We have red, neon colors like a green, a yellow, an orange. You name it, we have a color for it. We print all those here. For the Duramax trucks, to the cigarette lighter switch mount, you can pop your cigarette lighter out in the hole in the dash. We make a mount that snaps into that hole. And it's already pre-drilled and indexed for a DSP-5 switch. So it makes you don't have to drill a hole in your dash, and you just kind of tuck the cigarette lighter back behind the dash and close it all up, and you're good. Those are a big seller for us. The switch knobs are like $9.99. The cigarette lighter is the same. really inexpensive parts. They're easy upgrades. If you're buying EFI Live, it doesn't have to be from us or whoever. EFI Live switch knob, it works for a bank switch knob, a TS. It doesn't really matter. We call them EFI Live switch knobs because we're mainly Duramax here, but we have got guys that buy them for pretty much every truck that has any type of switchable tuning on it. And then we do a lot of dash panels. And a Duramax, there's really no good place to mount a switch. It's not some of the other trucks like the Dodges and the Fords and stuff, they kind of have it built in and it's awesome. It's all integrated and looks great. And that was really lacking on the Duramax trucks. So we sell a switch plate that fits the 01 to 06 trucks in the center console there. It's got 7 cutouts for rocker switches. We sell one for the upper cubby in the center console as well. You have 2 cigarette lighters in those Duramaxes. We take one cigarette lighter out and we snap in a dual USB port. And then behind the dash, we send a car charger with that. So you can run both USB ports into a car charger behind the dash. So you just have USB plug-ins on your dash. Or what a lot of guys do is they do one into a cigarette lighter charger, and then the other one they run into their aftermarket radio. So they kind of have a USB auxiliary port in the actual center console instead of having that line run down over the front where the radio is and stuff like that. So that's another one for us. We do stainless steel braided gauge lines. It's a 5-foot piece of stainless braided hose, has the fittings and everything for guys that run in a mechanical boost gauge. And it just cleans up the look of the truck instead of having that 1/8-inch nylon run underneath the hood. That's another big one for us. We sell a lot of these OBD2 port covers that say do not reflash with guys running custom tuning, and guys have a lot of money invested in custom tuning. That's a big one for us, or guys that are going in for warranty work or dealer work or something like that, and the dealer wants to do an update. They don't want to get stranded where the dealer calls them and says, hey, we did an update and now your truck doesn't start. So that goes over the OBD2 port. It's the actual cover. It's red. It says do not reflash, consult owner. It's a great upgrade. It's cheap. It's a heck of a lot cheaper than the headache of having to deal with a dealer that just flashed over your brand new tunes.
Yeah, it is.
So those are our big products. We have a sister company, Duramax Gear. We do all our own apparel here for Longhorn in-house, and then we do embroidery and all our hats and shirts and hoodies and all that stuff is done here. We took all that in-house. And we have Duramax Gear as well, which is all Duramax-related shirts, all kinds of different styles. They're not like your normal cheap mall shirts. These are really high-quality shirts. It wouldn't matter if you went to a department store or you bought one of these shirts. You're going to get that same feel and that same style. It's a really nice shirt you can wear anywhere. So we do that, and then we're starting to build razor parts. The side-by-side's a big industry. And a couple other guys on the podcast, Corey's big into side-by-sides. We're starting to manufacture parts for those. It's a huge industry. We kind of take what we learned from the diesel trucks and we kind of leverage that same volume. Our volume for when we order parts for traction bars, we usually order by every component almost by the skid. So we have pallet after pallet after pallet of components get delivered. And so we kind of leverage that volume for razor parts. We don't have any on our website right now. We have a lot testing and on our own razors here, but we build them. I always say we build them like diesel truck parts, but they fit on your razor. And so that's kind of another thing we're getting into as well. So really trying to expand the market and use kind of what we learned in that industry into the side-by-sides as well.
That's really cool. So where's the best place for our listeners that you want to go check out the traction bars and the brackets and the EFI Live switches and all the cool stuff you guys are working on? Where's the best place to see that?
Sure. Yeah, so you can take a look. Our Instagram page is at Longhorn Fab Shop. You can take a look there. We post tons and tons of pictures. If you want some real inside information, not just finished product pictures, follow the Instagram page. Our Instagram and our Facebook are linked together. Generally, you'll see the same thing on either page. We link those together. Some people prefer Facebook. Some people prefer Instagram. It's just Longhorn Fab Shop on Facebook. We're approaching 200,000 likes here soon, so I'm really excited about that. So check it out there. If you want real inside information, check out the Instagram page. That's where we really post a lot of, when we get pallets in, we'll take pictures of them. People will see kind of what goes on here, pictures of us boxing them, product on the shelf, stuff like that. So as far as where to buy them, I mean, obviously you can buy them on LonghornFabShop.com, but you can get them on Street Diesel as well. You know, have all your customers head your direction. Check out your website. You guys will have them on there. That's really the best place to buy them. We really like to build our dealer network and things like that. We drop ship out of here a lot, but you know, we really want to have our dealers have some stock as well, and really drive customers to guys like you that are really good at the marketing and Facebook and ads and things like that. We want to drive as much of that traffic to guys like you, and when that happens and customers buy from guys like you, what that does is it frees us up to build more products, build better products, improve on what we have, and then make sure that everything is in stock all the time. So
that's really cool. Yeah, especially, you know, when it's in stock and it can get to customers quickly. That's probably the most asked question.
Oh yeah, yep. And that's one thing with. Oh yeah, we get that call all the time. Do you have these in stock? Do you have these in stock? And it's kind of crazy. This is kind of a weird time right now. We were in all the major magazines last year. We hit every single one of them: Diesel Tech, Diesel World, Diesel Power. We had an article in all those magazines last year, and it was taken off towards the end of the year. And the beginning of this year, it has been absolutely nuts. So what we did was, we saw it coming. We saw the trending, what was happening, and we were ordering components as fast as we could. And we were actually taxing some of our supplier components, and whether that was hardware, and stuff like that, some parts that we have to have, machined on high volume, turret machines and high volume, bar feeders and things like that. So we were really taxing those suppliers, and we've actually been on a situation since January where we've really been in a back order situation, what we would consider back order. We're still shipping within a few days, but normally where we have pallets and pallets of product on hand and product on the pallet, we hadn't had, until last week, we hadn't had a single product ever touch a pallet or a pallet rack. It has literally been production, box, ship. And so since January, we ramped up 4 different times. So we said, okay, we need to make this many in a certain amount of time. And before those were even done, we were starting another production, and that next production was ramped up from the previous. So we did that 4 times so far this year. And this last run, we stepped up to 1,000 sets. And we went ahead and made the capital investment in 1,000 sets. So you can imagine the inventory level. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars wrapped up in inventory to build 1,000 sets. And when you do 1,000 sets, just the grade 8 hardware alone, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars just in bolts, which is pretty crazy when you walk out here and you see all these bolts everywhere. But that's kind of the investment we made, because we are making an investment into having product on the shelf, and we don't want any of our dealers or any of our customers to have to call anymore. We want them to say, Longhorn makes this, I don't care where I get it, we know that they have it in stock. And so that's the investment we made and the commitment we made to our dealers and our wholesalers, and ultimately our customers, and regardless of who that customer is. So that production run is finally finishing up. We're starting another production run right behind that, but we have pallets full of product and pallet racks with product on it now. So we're very excited for what's next.
That's fantastic. We definitely appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with us and educate us and our listeners on your products. And had a great time chatting with you, and we definitely appreciate it.
Sure, awesome. It's great talking with you as always.
Don't forget, Diesel Power Podcast fans, win a free set of traction bars from Longhorn Fab Shop. Entering to win is easy and does not require a purchase. Like the Street Diesel Power and Longhorn Fab Shop Facebook pages, and like, share, and comment on this post on Facebook. We'll choose one random fan for a free set of traction bars. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.